Hi, good morning friends and students. Now I am going to read next important question. You can use this reading for audio purpose. You can listen to it by using your headphone, which will help to enhance your memory power. And now I am going to read, so you can also read with me. Before understanding anything, you must read something. Okay, that is the purpose I am going to make this video on this channel. That at first you should try to read 1, 2, 3 times, but actually this is a video, so I am going to only read one time, because after reading most of the sentences, the words you are familiarized with, and it helps in your examination. Whenever you are appearing at the examination, so you are in the examination hall, you don't have to think a lot of words, because the words comes in a jumble, and at that time you can alternatively use any kind of word, and this is why I focus also on reading. Okay, so let's read this question. This question is: write note on Criterion reference test. It was asked in June 2012 and December 2007. Or, what are the various steps involved in construction of Criterion reference test? Select a unit topic in your subject and construct having 10 items on the basis of above mentioned steps asked in December 2010. Or, select a unit topic in your subject at secondary level and construct Criterion reference test having 15 items on the basis of described steps for it. Mention each step while constructing the Criterion reference test. It was asked in June 2009. Let's read now it. Now I start the answer. A Criterion reference test is one that provides for translating test scores into a statement about the behavior to be expected of a person with that score or their relationship to a specified subject matter. Most tests and quizzes written by school teachers are Criterion reference tests. The objective is simply to see whether the student has learned the material. Criterion reference testing was a major focus of psychometric research in the 1970s. A Criterion reference test is a test that provides a basis for determining a candidate's level of knowledge and skills in relation to a well-defined domain of content. Often one or more performance standards are set on the test score scale to aid in test score interpretation. Criterion reference tests, a type of test introduced by Glaser and Popham and Hossack, are also known as domain reference tests, competency tests, basic skills tests, mastery tests, performance tests or assessments, authentic assessments, objective reference tests, standards-based tests, credentialing exams, and more. What all of these tests have in common is that they attempt to determine a candidate's level of performance in relation to a well-defined domain of content. This can be contrasted with norm reference tests, which determine a candidate's level of the construct measured by a test in relation to a well-defined referenced group of candidates referred to as the norm group. So it might be said that Criterion reference tests permit a candidate's score to be interpreted in relation to a domain of a content, and norm reference tests permit a candidate's score to be interpreted in relation to a group of examinees. The first interpretation is content-centered and the second interpretation is examinee-centered. The subject of constructing Criterion reference test is often researched, but many technical problems remains to be satisfactorily resolved. For most Criterion reference test developers need to comprehensive set of steps for construction. In the paper 14 logical steps for building criterion reference tests that refer to several different applications and allow for objective and non-objective format are offered. Preliminary consideration, identification of possible content, preparation of domain specifications, a review of domain specifications, additional test planning, preparation of test content, preparation of scoring method, test material review, compilation of final form of test, determination of standards, preparation of report forms, preparation of technical manual, publication of test, and collection of technical data. 4 significant contributions of the steps are use of a prior methods of validation, allowance for use of objective non-objective test formats, flexibility of steps for use in distinct situations, classroom, district, state and national, and comprehensiveness of test steps. In addition to the steps, a discussion of rationale for inclusion of each steps and guidelines for implementation are provided. A criterion referenced measurement has its origin in the writing of objectives by measure who urge teachers to specify a criterion of acceptable performance, while to specify a performance while stating instructional learning outcome, an intended level of proficiency of the learner, or a desired standard of performance. Thus, in contrast to a non-referenced measure, we can refer an individual performance to a predetermined criterion which is well defined. This type of measurement is termed as criterion reference measurement. It determines an individual status with reference to well-defined criterion behavior. It is an attempt to interpret test results in terms of clearly defined learning outcomes which serve as reference criteria. Success of criterion reference tests lies in which the delineation of all defined levels of achievement, which are usually specified in terms of behaviorally stated instructional objectives. According to Glaser, underlying the concept of measurement of achievement lies the notion of the continuum of knowledge acquisition ranging from no proficiency to perfect performance. It is on the continuum of knowledge that an individual's status regarding his or her achievement is to be determined. Unlike a norm-referenced measurement, the criterion level of minimum acceptable performance for each objective is specified in advance in criterion reference tests. Use of criterion reference measurement at the elementary stage, where learning of basic skills and fundamental concepts is essential, is a must to lay a proper foundation for learning at the secondary stage. It does away with the unfair comparison of an individual with other children. The major difficulty is the establishment of an achievement continuum in accordance with the complexity of the skills or the concepts involved. This notion also leads us to the concept of minimum levels of learning and mastery. Levels of learning (MLLC) for primary classes has already been prepared by NCERT and Ministry of Human Resource Development, Government of India. The work in the field for secondary level is in progress. MLL can serve as criteria for evaluating students at particular stage. In fact, both norm-referenced and criterion-referenced measurements have a place in the teaching-learning process. A criterion reference test is a test that provides a basis for determining a candidate's level of knowledge and skills in relation to a well-defined domain of content. Often one or more performance standards are set on the test score scale to aid in test score interpretation. Criterion reference tests, a type of test introduced by Glaser and Popham and Hosek, are also known as domain reference test, competency test, basic skills test, mastery test, performance test or assessments, authentic assessment, objective reference test, standards based tests, credentialing exams, and more. Student, you can see that these lines are again repeated because previously we have read the same sentence, the same word. So it is not to worry. Sometimes in the book it is repeated. What all of these tests have in common is that they allow to determine a candidate's level of performance in relation to a well-defined domain of content. This can be contrasted with non-reference tests, which determine a candidate's level of the construct measured by a test in relation to a well-defined reference group of candidates referred to as the norm group. So it might be said that Criterion reference tests permit a candidate's score to be interpreted in relation to a domain of content, and non-reference tests permit a candidate's score to be interpreted in relation to a group of examinees. The first interpretation is content-centered and the second interpretation is examinee-centered. There are varieties of Criterion reference tests, and due to confusion in the nature and scope of such tests, it is quite difficult to provide clear-cut guidelines for their construction. However, keeping in view the basic tenets of Criterion reference tests, the following steps can be suggested. Some of these steps may be combined while others can be split up into two or more steps. Nevertheless, the steps given below seem quite appropriate. For A, it is given first, identification of subject area. The first step in the development of Criterion reference tests is the decision about the subject matter around to be worked out. For example, one may take up mathematics, English, environmental studies, etc., and depending upon the need of the area and the resources, one can utilize for one or more subject areas. B. Selection of unit topic. After the decision is taken about the area, the next step is to select the unit on which the test is to be developed. This unit may have more than one modules, sections, domains which comprise the total unit. Depending upon the need, one or more than one sections or chunks of content may be taken up for test construction. C. Delineation and description of domain of testing. Since domain refers to a particular segment of the content, one may examine the topic and delineate it into various segments, which can be developed into well-defined separate subdomains. Each subdomain can then be analyzed in terms of facts, concepts, principles, processes, etc. This may be arranged in order of their increasing complexity. Description of subdomain is very important as it provides the basis for item writing. It should reflect clearly the nature and scope of the content, a specification in sequential, hierarchical, or development order. D. A specification of domain objective. Having decided about content elements of a domain selected, the next task is to formulate the instructional objectives on the expected learning outcomes, which may be categorized in terms of knowledge, understanding, application, skills, attitudes, etc. These objectives should be stated so precisely that the performance of students is clearly interpretable in terms of adequacies or inadequacies of intended learning outcomes. For more clarification, sample prototype items can be framed that may accompany each specific objective. E. External reviews of step C and D. The tasks identified in step C and D should be reviewed by those who are not involved in identifying the domain and its descriptions in terms of content elements and the objectives. However, a teacher who teaches that particular subject may also be involved in this task so that he/she may be able to clarify doubts, if any, raised by the external reviewers. The main purpose of this review is to sharpen domain description and specific objectives in order to make them more realistic and functional. For the sample items accompanying the specific objectives are checked for their congruence with each objective and content elements. F. Internal review. After step E, the internal reviewer, that is, the constructor himself or herself, will examine all specific objectives along with one or other sample items which accompany each specific objective. The focus of this review is on sharpening the specific objectives further if necessary. G. Construction of test forms A and B. It is desirable to develop two forms of the test, A and B, so that one of the two could be used after post-instructional remedial measures. Moreover, it would be easier to compute reliability on the two forms. A copy of the key or the correct answer should accompany the test and may be written by the developer. As far as the construction of items is concerned, these items are to be developed in accordance with the domain description. This is, however, not always possible or practical, especially in teacher-made tests. Therefore, in teachers-made tests, only one test form will do. H. Internal review of steps G. An internal review by the teacher is essential when the tests are ready, that is, after step G. The purpose of this review is to see whether all questions in the tests are congruent with the specific objectives, besides having a cursory check for any glaring deficiencies in the test, that is, placement of key, arrangement of items, sufficiency of instructions, etc. It is at this stage that items can be further improved and the congruence of items with a specific objective is ensured. I. External review of the tests. Prior to the field trial, the test may be re-examined by the practicing teachers. The main purpose is to detect content flaws, if any, and check for congruence of item with the domain description. This should be done preferably by those very people who do external review for steps C and D as mentioned under step E. J. Field trial of the test. At this stage, other tests may be tried out on a limited number of students, say 5 to 10, to get a fix on the element in an instruction which might be proved drastically wrong. It is better that the subject teachers, other than those involved in the development of the tests, administer these tests. However, one team member of the developer may accompany them in order to meet queries, if any, relating to the content of procedure that might arise during tryout of the test. This is possible only if the member who is conversant with the development of the test is associated in the field tryout. K. Internal review. After step 1, internal review would provide a last look at the test, which would depend on the changes, if any, that have been made as a result of the review or the field tryout. The purpose of this review is to clarify the final format of the test and pass it for print or use. L. Final form of the tests. Now the final form of test is ready for use and may be administered after having it published or cyclo-styled, depending upon the size of the group to which this test is to be given. A sign-off sheet may be used to accompany the various tests as they move from step A to L. Each test may be kept in a folder to which the signed sheet may be attached. This enables the developer to keep track of the given test. To monitor the progress of the test as it goes through the various stages of development, a master progress sheet can be used. M. Using the test in a classroom. Test copies can be used in the classroom. The test can be administered to test the domains which are covered by the test. The domains being tested can be arranged according to the needs of the teacher and administered accordingly. Students' responses may be recorded and tabulated in accordance with a scheme of analysis which has to be mostly in terms of specified domain objectives. Finding validity and reliability of the test. Since the data are not available on the test, we may find out the reliability and validity of the test using various techniques. Okay, so now reading is complete. Now I will explain this question in the video, because this question is very large. So I will explain it from English to Hindi in 2 parts. Okay, thank you. Take care. Bye then.